How does coffee affect the thyroid of people with slow or fast thyroid? Well, we know that people with a slow thyroid have a slow metabolism, and people with a fast thyroid also have a fast metabolism. So does it speed up the metabolism of people with a slow thyroid, or does it slow down the metabolism of people with a fast thyroid? And the real answer to that is simply, we don't know. Why don't we know? Because there is not a single study looking at the effects of coffee and caffeine on the thyroid gland of people with a slow thyroid, fast thyroid, or Hashimoto's thyroiditis. There is one mouse study that looks at that. And in that study, what happened was the researchers gave the mice a dose of caffeine of about 70 milligrams per kilogram. And what they found is that yes, their metabolism did increase up until about peaking at about 2 weeks and then going back down at about the 4-week mark. Now, how high was the peak? They burned between 40 and 75% more calories at their peak than at baseline. Now, that's just a mouse and rat study. How does that apply to humans? Well, not very well. Because if you were to give humans a dose of caffeine of 70 milligrams per kilogram, that would kill a person. Most people who drink between 1 and 4 cups of coffee per day are getting only about 1 to 3 milligrams per kilogram per day. So a dose of 70 milligrams per kilogram just doesn't apply to people. So that was problem number 1 with the study. Problem number 2 is, even if it was to be studied in people, with caffeine, we know that there's an effect called habituation. What is habituation? Habituation simply means that if you go from being not a coffee drinker to becoming a coffee drinker, at first the effect is very pronounced, but after a few days or weeks of drinking coffee regularly, the effect becomes less pronounced. It doesn't give you as much energy. It doesn't speed up your heart rate as much. It doesn't improve your focus as much. So there is the effect of habituation. Now that is the research on thyroid in mice and rats. Now, what about research on prevention of thyroid issues, which is not quite the same as treatment. Actually, it's not at all the same as treatment. In one meta-analysis, they found that there was absolutely no relationship between coffee consumption and thyroid conditions. So whether they drink a lot of coffee or a little coffee made no difference. Another study actually found an inverse relationship. So the more coffee people drank in this study, the less likely they were to develop thyroid cancer. And again, this is just prevention, this is not treatment, which is very, very different. As it stands right now, there is not a single study looking at the treatment of thyroid conditions with coffee. If we wanted to design an experiment that looked at the role of coffee in the treatment of thyroid disorders, we would need a very large group of people, and half of those people would have to get a coffee, the other half would have to get decaf, and neither group knows which one they're getting. They would have to drink that on a regular basis for about 1 to 3 months. Their thyroid markers would have to be measured before the study, and they would have to be measured 1 month after the study, or maybe 3 months after the study. And that's the kind of experiment we would need. However, that doesn't exist yet. So unfortunately, the best recommendation I can make is, I don't know. We don't know how coffee and caffeine affect the thyroid of people with thyroid conditions, whether that's hyperthyroidism, hyperthyroidism, or Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or even thyroid cancer. Now, rather than telling you that we do know, I'm going to be intellectually honest, scientifically honest, to say the research just isn't there. We can't make recommendations based on what doesn't exist. Perhaps in a few years there will be research, but as it stands in the present time, there isn't. If you like this video, my name is Igor. Click like and subscribe.